What's up, you guys? Welcome back. Today, I'm super excited. We're gonna be doing a little test, a little dupe test today with one of my favorite palettes and also a brand new palette. I've basically just been wanting to test this for myself and I was like, you know what, it'll actually be a good video. So we're gonna put them to the test, one eye versus one eye, and see. So it is the Makeup by Mario Master Mattes palette. This is literally my favorite high-end palette of all time. You guys can see it is dirty, it is well used. This honestly, at least recently, 9 times out of 10, if I'm grabbing for a palette, this is the one I grab for. I absolutely love it. It's beautiful. With that being said, it does retail for $50, so it is not cheap. I completely understand that. It's definitely at a high-end price tag. You do get 12 different shades. They are all mattes, all neutrals, and I do think it's a great palette to have in your collection. Like I said, I use it all the time and has so many staple shades. Now, for the dupe. When I saw this initially, I was like, kind of reminds me of my Makeup by Mario palette. So this is from e.l.f., but interestingly enough, so this is brand new. It's part of their new Perfect 10 eyeshadow palettes. I believe they've launched, I wanna say like 5 different colorways. This one is in the shade Summer Breeze. That's what it's called. I'm gonna just rip this off. It is $10. I purchased it off of e.l.f.'s website. Now, e.l.f. actually had a different palette that was this same colorway, but it was packaged differently, and they basically reformulated the palettes, put them in new packaging, and relaunched them. So they actually, I believe, had this colorway like palette before the Makeup by Mario palette was launched. I'm not 1000% sure on that, but this is not like a brand new colorway. They basically reformulated the palette and repackaged it and then dropped this. So I don't think it was necessarily made as a dupe for this, which is what makes it a little bit more interesting. But when I look at them side to side, let me open this to show you, they do look quite similar. So I'll get more into like the differences and everything in between both of them in the video. I'm like jumping ahead already. We're still in the intro. I didn't even say hi to you guys, but I hope you're all having a great day. Make sure you guys subscribe to my channel if you have not already. Click the little bell right next to the subscribe button so you be notified of all my future uploads. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so with the new e.l.f. palette, this retails for $10. Like I said, you do get 10 different shades. So right off the bat, Makeup by Mario, you are gonna get more shades. There's 12 in the Makeup by Mario versus 10 in the e.l.f. With that being said, the Makeup by Mario is 5 times more expensive than the e.l.f. So I wanna see if we can still create the same look. Another thing that I did find interesting is in the e.l.f., although there are only 10 shadows, you are getting 13 grams of product in this palette versus the Makeup by Mario with 12 shadows, you are getting 12 grams of product. So you're actually getting more eyeshadow in the e.l.f., which is kind of interesting. So that is something that I wanted to know. So basically what I wanna do today is create a really pretty neutral eye look. Y'all know those are my favorite. And see if we can get the same look using both palettes. I'm gonna do one eye with this palette, one eye with this palette, and put them to the test. Because as much as I love this palette, I know that $50 is a lot for an eyeshadow palette, and if we can get a similar look with a $10 one, I wanna know about it, you know? And I wanna share it with you guys. So let's jump in and get started. In case anyone is interested, I am gonna be cleaning off my brushes from side to side so that there's no contamination of the products. I don't know if I can speak today. All right, let's start easy. We're gonna go in with a neutral transition. I'm gonna go in with this one right here. This is pretty much my most used as a neutral transition shade in the Makeup by Mario Master Mattes. And we will do this side with the Makeup by Mario. So I'm gonna just buff this onto my lid. It's a very similar color, honestly, to my skin tone, so you probably won't really see it show up all that much. Will just kind of help as a buffer before we go in with some darker shades. One thing I do really like about these palettes is all the mattes blend like absolute butter. A lot of times mattes can be a little bit more dry, more difficult to blend depending, but you are not gonna have any struggles with these, so that's why I do always go for this palette. All right, that's good on that, cleaning off my brush. Now let's jump into the e.l.f. and let's go in with this shade right here. This is the one that looks the most similar in the e.l.f. palette. Now, one thing that I can see right off the bat is I got a lot more kickback on the e.l.f., if you can see, on this shade than I do in Makeup by Mario. Not nearly as much with that one, so something to note. Not a huge deal to me personally, but I just wanna make sure that I do show you guys any differences that I come across as we're doing this, because I've obviously used the Makeup by Mario many times. This is my first time using the e.l.f. palette, so I don't know how it performs. It could potentially not be a dupe whatsoever at all and be completely different, so I don't know. That's why we're finding out together. But so far on this shade, I would say quite similar side to side, really not seeing a significant difference. Up next in the Makeup by Mario, I'm gonna go in with this shade right here to help deepen up the crease. In this one, I do think we're gonna see a difference. So in the Makeup by Mario side, it's cool toned, but it's not as cool toned as the similar shade in the e.l.f. This one has almost a little bit of like honey undertones to it, but it does help to deepen up the crease. It's one of my favorite shadows in the palette because it gives nice depth in the crease without making it like super smoky. Now, this one is the shade that I would say is the most similar in the e.l.f. It is definitely cool toned. This one is also kind of similar. So what I'm gonna do is mix those two shades together. This one right here to get those honey, and this one to get the more cool toned. Just gonna grab a little bit of both on my brush and work that into the crease. Okay, so it's definitely a bit darker, but it honestly is looking pretty dang close. I mean, but I will say definitely a hair darker on the e.l.f. little combo shadow that we did. Now in the Makeup by Mario, I'm gonna jump in with this shade right here. This one is a little bit more of a warmer brown, and I'm gonna kind of buff that in the outer corner just to add a little warmth to the look. It's basically a brown with red undertones. Cleaning my brush off, and then let's go in the e.l.f. palette with this shadow right here. They look quite a bit different in the pan, but when you swatch them, they don't actually look all that much different. And I feel like on the eye, definitely similar. The e.l.f. a little bit lighter on this shade, where the Makeup by Mario is a little bit darker, but still give that same sort of warm smoky effect to the outer eye. Now I'm gonna jump in with this shade right here, the Makeup by Mario, and I'm gonna apply this all over the lid, a light matte transition color. I like to use this when I wanna add like a little bit of brightness to my lid, but not actually use like a white. It gives like a subtle, natural brightness to the lid. In the e.l.f. palette, I'm gonna go in with this shade right here. I'm gonna do the same thing and apply all over the lid. Now this one I can also immediately see they are super similar in undertone. e.l.f. a little bit darker. Gives a little bit of a darker effect. I do like the more brighter effect that I get from the Makeup by Mario shade. I'm gonna go in with a little bit of this color too, since we haven't gotten to use it yet in the e.l.f. and see if I add that on top, if it makes it any lighter. I honestly don't think that it will. That just kind of made it a little bit more brown. So with this shade, you're definitely gonna see a difference. Now I'm gonna jump in with the lightest shade, and I'm gonna use this in my inner corner and my brow bone. It's really nice, pigmented, like off-white. It's not a super stark white. It's a little bit more natural, like a nice creamy white, but helps to brighten. And then in the e.l.f., I'm gonna go in with this one and do the same thing. Apply to the inner corner and right beneath the brow bone. This one's working super similarly. Okay, now in the Makeup by Mario palette, I'm gonna grab the matte black. And I'm just grabbing it on a tiny little angled brush. I'm gonna go in on my lower lash line, or I'm sorry, upper lash line, and add it there. And I'm gonna kind of flick it upwards to do a little wing, like a soft, diffused one. And then I'm also gonna do it underneath my eyes on the lower lash line. Clean in my little brush. Now let's jump in with the matte black in the e.l.f. and do the exact same thing. Focus it on the upper lash line first, wing it out a little bit, and then also bring it down on the lower lash line. All right, there we go. So far, by far, the biggest difference is the all over the lid color. This one is definitely darker, definitely lighter in the Makeup by Mario, and I do love the all over the lid color in the Mario, so I wish there was one in the e.l.f. that was closer to that. You may be able to do it if you mix this one with the lighter one, which I didn't do. For experimental purposes, let's see if I take a little bit of the light and apply it over top, if it gives similar. Makes it a little bit similar, but still not exactly the same as this pretty one in the Makeup by Mario, honestly. But the rest of everything else definitely working similarly. Now I do want to buff out the lower lash line, so I'm gonna go with this shade in Makeup by Mario and just buff that, like use it to kind of buff out that black so that it's not so harsh and it's diffused. Cleaning it off. And then we're gonna go in with this shade in the e.l.f. and do the same thing. All right, so here's how the eyes look right next to each other so you guys can see. I think they look quite similar. The all over the lid color, obviously definitely different, but I would say everything else was very, very similar. Let me go put on mascara and stuff so we can see the look fully completed, and we'll do final thoughts. All right, you guys, mascara is done. I used the new Huda Beauty One Coat. That stuff is very, very good. But here is the completed look once I have mascara on. I didn't apply lashes or anything, so we could still really see the eyeshadow. Honestly, side to side, very, very similar. I think both have great pigmentation and blendability. One thing that I'll definitely say with the e.l.f., there are less shades to begin with. Obviously, you get 12 in the Makeup by Mario, only 10 in the e.l.f. But I think the variety of shades in the Makeup by Mario is better. Like, I know there are 2 extra, so yeah, of course the variety is better, but also like this deep matte brown I love in this palette. There really isn't one comparable in this palette. I feel like these 3 shades right here, we probably could have done away with one of them because they're all quite similar, and given us another like darker brown. That would have been amazing. Like I would have loved to see a few darker shades because most of this palette is lighter or medium tone shades. We really only get like the purple, this cool tone brown, and then the matte black. Where with the Makeup by Mario, it's a little more even. There's 4 light shades, 4 medium, and 4 dark. Another thing I do want to add as far as components go, I do actually like this new, because e.l.f. did redo the packaging on this. I do like this new packaging better than the previous one, but in the Makeup by Mario, it definitely is like a heavier, more luxe feeling palette. If that's something that matters to you, do also get the mirror where you do not get that in the e.l.f. I personally love a nice mirror like this because a lot of times I really gotta see up close like when I'm doing my eyes. So I use this mirror in this palette a lot, even with how dirty it was, so I can really get up close, especially if you're on the go or whatever. So I do love the mirror. Is it worth 5 times the price because of the mirror? No. And you are not gonna get that in the e.l.f. But this obviously does come at a higher price point, and I know $50 is just not something that everybody is going to spend on an eyeshadow palette. So if you want to get one that's quite similar, I do really like this e.l.f. one. I will absolutely continue to use this. I will continue to use the Makeup by Mario. Let me know if you guys think that they are a dupe. I would say that I was able to create a very, very similar eye look with both, but definitely let me know in the comments what you guys think. You can't go wrong with either palette. That I do know for sure. So definitely let me know your thoughts down below. I know this video will probably be a little bit shorter than my other videos because we just did our eyes. So I'm sorry about that. Let me know if you guys like that, if you hate it. I know a lot of times you guys say that you want longer videos, so long videos are still coming too. This one's just a little bit shorter because I just wanted to really put the palettes to the test and make the video about that. So thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out with me. I love you guys, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye.